Hello. Good morning, everybody. I'm Raul Mimbacas. I'm a board member of Tall Ships International Limited, and I would like to introduce our speaker, Catherine Collins. As you have already read in Catherine's background, she is and has been for more than 10 years executive director of a Seattle area non-profit organization called Sound Experience, who owns and operates a historic schooner called Adventurous. But for those who has never met Catherine before, and what you couldn't read in her background is that Catherine is a very clever and enthusiastic person, is consistent with her beliefs, passionate about his job. And she will propose us a sustainable model of tall ship operation based in the strength of the mission of the organization. Please.
Thank you, Raul. Thank you so much. It's an incredible honor to be here from Seattle, Washington, and I will say that I know at least a half a dozen of you who could give this presentation today and have as much or more credibility in doing so. So there will be an opportunity I want to share. I'd love to call on the collective wisdom of the room. And those of you who run tall ships and nonprofit tall ships, if you can think of an example, say, that is your most, I'd say, powerful mission-driven program for earned income, and then maybe your most innovative mission-driven, mission-related, reflected, fundraised initiative as well. If you have one, think about it. I know we've got a couple plants in the room today, but I did want to just let you know that that would be coming. So sustainability in the nonprofit context to me includes concepts of financial sustainability, adaptability, and strategic planning. And so I wanted to welcome you all to that today. This is about the business model of sail training, a business model of sail training, what we've been doing to adapt and grow this for the last decade, if not more. But before that, I want to show you 3 minutes, the obligatory film. But what I want to say about that is that we had an opportunity this year, finally, after probably 5 or 6 years of seeking this, we had a professional outfit do a film of our organization. It's going to be running on the banner of the website that they're in fact finishing for us now as well. All of that is pro bono. It's probably, I'd say, in the commercial world, maybe a $10,000 in-kind donation. And I will say that we do have a lot more diversity in our programs than this film reflects, because we had to pull kids out of school on the day that we could get this filmed with their professional crew. So we've got some few plants in this film, but you'll see our captain, Rachel Slattery. You'll see a teacher, Kelly Watson, who is in a workforce development program and talking about what students experience on that. So just by way of introduction, wanted to let you know about that. Just 3 minutes.
Every person that stepped foot on this boat has left a little bit of themselves here. And she's been around for 103 years. So that's a lot of people of all walks of life, of all ages. And you can't step aboard this boat and not feel the magic.
Community would be the base of it. And that's what we do every day in 1,000 different ways. You extend that outside the ship by what we teach our hard sciences, teaching about the marine ecosystem. That too is our community. And we travel to different places around the Puget Sound to expand our community.
The kids and teens, the youth that come on board have a plethora of things that they can experience. They can learn about team building, they can learn about sailing, they can learn about the environment, they can learn about themselves. There's literally no end to what they can take away from this experience.
I think I steered the boat a couple times. It's a really cool thing to do. You'll remember it for a really long time, and it's a really valuable experience.
You can see them, the friendships, the camaraderie build among the kids, and when they leave, they don't want to go, and they've soaked into the boat.
This is their classroom, this is their learning platform to not only learn about the ship, but learn how to work together and ultimately learn more about themselves and really understand their capabilities, realize that there's things that they can do in the world that they never imagined were possible.
Feel more independent, but relying on people. It makes you very aware on what is out there, and if more people did it, more people would realize how much we are affecting wildlife out there, and how much we could benefit by less littering and more renewable energy.
You don't get to challenge yourself in that way at all. And then you're going out on the water, steering a 100-foot boat on your own with all these people watching you. So you grow up a lot. You do your own dishes, your own cooking, you do it all.
The greatest value that Adventurous has in this region is the ability to bring large groups of people, lots of people, thousands of people out each year. It's accessible. And what she's doing is giving people the opportunity to get out and explore our world, our Salish Sea, our Puget Sound. It's up to you after that.
So thank you for being the stage on which ARC Media gets to show their video to a global audience. They are thrilled about that. So business model. Oh, we're just going to have the ocean in the background. You know what? It's probably going to run some other YouTube video after that. Let me stop that.
Every person
That's Captain Rachel Slattery from Rhode Island. She's amazing. She flies out to Seattle to do her stint every 2 weeks because the right captain for Adventurous is so hard to find. So, culturally, makes a difference. So, I'll just jump right in. I'm going to go out on a limb and say building the ship is the easy part. I've seen a lot in the past decade. Some of you have seen way more decades than I on this. But I'm a fundraiser. I'm a career fundraiser. I did it for a couple of decades before coming to Sound Experience. I fundraised for economic development. I fundraised for Outward Bound. I fundraised for a computer museum. And I came through the fundraising Haas, as the case may be. And I think my experience is that capital fundraising, whether it's a building or whether it's a ship, is just far easier because it's tangible, because you can touch it. There's a psychology around it. Restoration for me is included in this easy category, and I don't want to be flippant from it, but it is my experience. I think that what I've noticed in this is far too many people are not spending time on the planning part for the business model, and simply, I mean, I know we all say we do, but there's a lot of assumptions made in our business models that maybe the market doesn't always reflect. So my story briefly with Sound Experience is that in 2005, the executive director quit. Adventurous was on the hard. They were $120,000 in debt. The organization was about a $600,000 operating budget at the time. And there were programs scheduled in March. And in February, I was hired to get the boat back into the water in 2006. With about a month to go, they kept the work going. The yards believed that we could have the money and come up with $120,000. We spent 18 months digging out of debt, slowly, paying everybody a little bit at a time until it was done. And then we said, no more, never again. We are never going to find ourselves in this situation. We had stayed ahead of the Coast Guard with regard to needed work. It wasn't mandated, but was starting to be mandated. You could put a spike through certain parts, a couple planks here and there. But what ended up happening is the board and I, it was a little, there's a little PTSD from that. We said, we're never going to do that again. And we started to plan in 2006 for her 100th anniversary, her birthday, in 2013. And with that, we launched the Centennial Restoration Project, a major, massive hull rebuild of this spectacular 1913 ship. So what I'm planning to cover today is a little bit of the adventurous story. Hope you'll indulge me in that because it's a very special ship. And mission plays a critical role as to why she's still here. We want to talk a little bit about operational model and what we're doing and where we come from. And then I wanted to invite you along with me. I'm going to share a few of our diversity of program income. Business people say that, a more diversified business is a business that is far more sustainable. When you have one customer, that customer can go away, right? So it's simple in that sense. It's an income and expense thing. And then diversity of fundraised income. And that's where I've brought a couple decades of experience on. But some of you have already told me about your fundraising experiences and initiatives, and they're very impressive. So I want to thank you for that and invite you to share yours. So I did share a little bit. The other thing I'll share is the reason I got involved with Sound Experience is I had put a teenager. My husband and I got a teenager as our kid. He was 14, a little baby, 14-year-old. He was, and we got him in 2004. And he kept getting sent back from every summer camp. He was impulsive. He did things like throw things on the roof of a building at the camp, and the camp said, we can't control this kid. And so we found adventurous sitting in Lake Union. And I had some experience having worked for Outward Bound. I had sailed and pulling boats off the coast of Maine, and I knew how powerful these programs could be. And we put him on adventures for a week. I feel really badly. We didn't tell them how impulsive he was. And I'm paying for that now, of course, because now, when people don't tell us about the impulsivity of their children. So, but we sat by the phone for a week and they didn't call. And we went back and found him completely engaged in the engine room. He didn't want to come home. He came home. When he did come home, he knew how to cook. That was amazing. And we kept sending him back. And that's how I knew about the organization. And when the job came open for the executive director, I had just finished an MBA program, Master's of Business Administration, at a nice Jesuit school in Seattle called Seattle University, and was and then got the job. So he now lives in upstate New York, is raising 2 small children. He did 2 tours of duty to Iraq and Afghanistan, and he's in the private sector. And I think Adventures had a major role on what he's become in the world. So we started a restoration program, and I told you about that a little bit. I wanted to share, we did 5 phases of restoration for the hull. It is complete. It was completed in spring of 2014. All sections of the ship, spars, sails, we got the sails worked into that, were replaced. And each of 5 phases happened in the season in between our sailing season. We sail from March through October. We did each of these carefully planned, amazing people on our ship committee. We have a board-led ship committee. And then not a day, really, of our program season was interrupted. We started maybe a week or 2 late and then finished up. We condensed everything into it, and we were able to make it happen. So this is just a little bit of those of you who want to sort of nerd out on the different sections and what we did each year. We had incredible leadership on our project management side. Captain Joshua Berger, who spoke at this conference 2 years about environmental sustainability. And then our last phase ended in 2014, 200 frames, 2,000 feet of planking, 2 to 4 keel bolts. It was quite an extraordinary alignment of materials availability, leadership in the organization at the time. Can any of you imagine what our fashion pieces must have looked like to do this? We didn't actually have, this is Adventure's extraordinary undercut, very iconic. This is how you know it's adventurous when you see her sailing in Puget Sound. We have the shipwrights of Puget Sound, or of Port Townsend, were engaged in each of these phases. And we also had the Northwest School of Wooden Boat Building, and their students were engaged in some of the refit to our forecastle and turning it back into a ship with the bunks that are needed to run our programs. Adventurous sleeps 36 and 24 students at a time. The rest are crew. So we have one phase left to go. It's a big phase. It's our largest phase. And this phase is what we called and are marketing it, if you will, as our capstone restoration phase. It includes deck and repower. I'm really happy to share that I think I know where the money's coming from. And it's supposed to start next fall. We have the wood drying in Port Townsend for it already for the deck. It's old growth fir, as sustainable as we could get from Canada. And we did this thing that we did with the whole rest of our projects is we we went to our friends for private funding, friends meaning people who've seen this organization for years, raising $200,000. Then we applied for the National Park Service Maritime Heritage Grant. It's the last place I know of in the United States at the federal level that you can get heritage funding for restoration of any maritime entity. We got the only one in Washington State this year, and it was the largest in the country. I'm also really honored that in Washington State, we then took that $400,000 and wrote a grant to Washington State for a biannual pot of money called, it's a $10 million fund called the Heritage Capital Projects Fund in Washington State. We were number one ranked out of all of the projects, peer ranked by experts in heritage throughout the state, everything from barns to courthouses to maritime entities, and we came up number one, which means we're first in line for funding. So I'm feeling pretty good for that. We'll know by July 1st when the governor signs the paperwork. So there she is. All restoration is done to a 50-year standard. We're thinking about the future. She is really fully sailing for generations to come, and I'm really proud of that. She's also one of only 2 National Historic Landmark sailing vessels still sailing the West Coast, and what that was a gift in 1989 from my predecessor, Ernestine Bennett, who ran the organization at the time. She did what it took to go through this really onerous process of getting the highest level of national significance in the country. And you know what? It's the reason we qualify for federal funding when it's available. And where other entities don't, I have that. It's a gift from the past. And I often wonder what our gifts will be for the future. But I think about it all the time. So our job now is to ensure that Adventurous is used to the highest and best use in Puget Sound, and relevance cannot be overstated. What are you good at? What should you do? And I know all of you think about that in your organizations. Youth development, maritime heritage, and the environment. Since 1989, Adventurous has been owned by Sound Experience, and Sound Experience was an environmental education entity to start with, and basically took over, youth development and added the component of the environment. And I think, looking back on that was pretty amazing, because it's also critical to what we do today. We also had this year a nice win. I want to just point out the governor's proclamation. We are now the official tall ship, the official environmental tall ship of Puget Sound. And I'm playing a card from one of my colleagues, and I'm looking at Les Bolton here. He got the official Washington State ship, which he built, the Lady Washington. And so what else did I have to play with? I actually had to come up with something else. So now we get to be the official environmental tall ship of Puget Sound, and the timing could not be better. So I did want to take you back just to 1913 briefly, so you can see a little bit before we dive into the meat of today. Just a little bit of history. Adventurers is a pretty special historic vessel. She was built in 1913 in East Boothbay, Maine. And she was built for a fellow by the name of John Borden, who was a wealthy Chicago gentleman who was riding that wave of exploration. He was going to the Arctic. He was building a vessel. I actually had an extraordinary opportunity. I kept asking myself, why? We always ask her, why was it built in Maine? He wanted to go from Seattle, but he built it there. And turns out, after spending some time at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts this summer, we found out through some research of old Crown and Shield, which is the designer, old Crown and Shield letters, that every single letter that he ever wrote to the shipyard is there. And we found out that he talked Borden into getting it built in Maine, which is why Borden did not make it to the Arctic that year. Did anybody read the doomed voyage of the Carluck? No, really? Oh, it's so good. You definitely need to be reading it in the summer with a cold drink in your hand, because it's harrowing. It's not how it's not a Shackleton story, but it is a story that talks about in 1913 how the pack ice came in early, and how ships got stuck in the ice, and then what happened when the men in the ship floated. It was a time when they were looking for land. In Canada was looking for land under the ice, and it's a great book, and it does actually completely set the stage for what was happening when adventurers set out to the Arctic. So the other claim to fame she has is that on board was a naturalist by the name of Roy Chapman Andrews. Does anybody recognize that name? Okay. Does Indiana Jones? So this is a fellow who was modeled after Indiana Jones, was reportedly modeled after Roy Chapman Andrews, and he was a naturalist at the American Museum for Natural History. He was on board on the maiden voyage. He probably, I think it's a good guess that he really was one of his last voyages, if perhaps his last voyage. They were getting a bowhead whale specimen for the American Museum of Natural History. The oil had been discovered, petroleum had been discovered, and they were closing the whaling stations up in the Arctic. And he was on board to try to do that. The museum also has some incredible letters that were written in 1913 from the deck of the schooner Adventurous. And I spent some time at the library in New York City looking at those as well. But it wasn't a great combination between Roy Chapman Andrews and the hunting party that he was with. And he did do some seminal research on the Pribilof Islands and the seal population at the time. Lots of great footage off of that. But I think he went inland to Mongolia after that, looking for dinosaur eggs. This is a photo we found this summer. And this is Adventurous in 1913, in February, on her maiden voyage to Boston. She arrived, and this is from an article that was in the Boston paper at the time, is that we had heard that she had arrived in Boston with 6 inches of ice hanging from the rigging. And when we tell the story in Adventurous, you look up and you think, how did that happen? And we found this photo this summer that actually shared that. She was on her way to Bermuda, stopping through Boston. Everybody abandoned ship. It must have been dreadful. She was, as Roy Chapman described, bounced around like a little top on the ocean. She's very not suited for offshore. She's when we cross the straits up to Canada, that's the only time anybody gets seasick. She really needs to be and it's good that she's an inland waterway vessel. She was sold the year after she was built to the San Francisco bar pilots and spent several decades plying the waters of San Francisco, bringing pilots out to meet see, what's great is I don't even have to explain to all of you what a pilot is. Normally I do, so I'll skip that. So, and this is what she looked like in 1952, when a fellow by the name of Doc Freeman from Seattle, who owned a chandlery, found her at the dock in Sausalito, and the pilots were selling her. And she looked pretty raggedy at that time, but he bought her thinking that he could turn around and sell her in Seattle, which is exactly what he did. This is a sweet letter from 1952 when the pilots let her go. I think the line I really love is, as regards to her whereabouts, new owners, etc., all who sailed on her, have a certain affection and loyalty to her. And I think that's one of the things that actually probably describes what is known as the adventurous magic in our region. She's very, very special. This is her coming into Seattle in 52 after a pretty harrowing, awful voyage that blew out all the raggedy leftovers of the sails. And then this is her today, back in her gaff rig glory. So I spend a lot of time, I sort of tell my staff that nobody really thinks more about like adventurous and survival than I do, because we have to make payroll every month, right? So I think too about mission. And I think that probably there's nothing more important in our organization than mission. And so much so that when each crew comes, we have 2 crew turnovers a year. We have a spring and summer and a summer fall. And we ask them to memorize the mission, and they do. And sometimes we give ice cream when they tell us, and they're right. So, every 5 years we do a strategic planning process, and we're completing the second one right now. We have all the language down. We've spent hours in wordsmithing it so that we have just the right words available. It's the process that ensures that what we do is still relevant. And I can't emphasize the word relevant enough. I've heard some of you in your presentations talk about relevance of your ships, and that's the only way I think our ships are going to survive. I think there's a few words in here I wanted to highlight. This is hot off the presses. This is our new mission. It looks a lot like the old one, except for a few things. There's some words in here that are really critical that get translated in every single way in our organization when you talk about culture. The word inclusive is no mistake. That we thought long and hard about it. That's a carryover from 5 years ago. And inclusive these days means some different things. It means how do we get safely serve and culturally safely serve Muslim students, girls, boys. It also, gender is a big issue now for us, and it's not just boys and girls. It's gender fluidity and gender neutrality, and it's transgender. And these are all things that are happening on our boat now. Everyone is welcome. Everybody is welcome. I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat today. Everything, we are a ship for everyone. And I think that I can't emphasize that enough. People want to take action. It's a motivator. You can see some words in there that are action oriented, and then the environment features prominently. What we do, what we don't do, every decision we make, we run it through this guideline. We also really work with our crew every single time. Cultures, I'm speaking to people who know this, where if you've got a cultural fit that is wrong on our ship, whether it's a captain or whether it's a crew member or whether it's somebody, adventurous and her culture tends to shave off the sides of you a little bit. If you're edgy, it's not going to last very long, because it is, and this probably happens on all of your ships too. I'm sure it does, but it happens very prominently. Either you get into step and sync with the culture, or you don't last. And that includes me. I came on with a certain set of ideas and thoughts, and some of them worked and some of them failed miserably. And I'm sort of still here. So anyway, this also really speaks to what we're good at and what we're not, and core competency. And I think it speaks as well to highest and BIS mission. And here are our values. This is what we live on every day. And you'll see, this is our brand new, this is hot off the presses. Nobody else has seen this, even in our organization. Few people have seen this so far, but it's about experience. If you can do this in a classroom, transformative education as a value, why would you do this on a ship? We are also, it's a good time to mention, we're a dry ship. And I have had to emphasize that over and over, including to board members who want to have a party on, we will never have alcohol on board Adventurous for any reason. And I know I'm probably wrong. Okay, so I will, and you know, there's no definitives, but that's a definitive. But what I will say is that by being clear on alcohol on the ship, whether you're a board member, whether you're having a party, we have parties on the shore 2 feet away. Not, you know, when we're having a cocktail party, you put your glass on a table and you can get aboard and tour Adventures. But not to belabor that, but I really think as a serious education ship, we walk the talk on that. Our commitment to staff and crew, shows in a learning organization value. The actions reflect the value of stewardship when we talk about acting for our waterways, and really that more important than ever in the wake of recent political events in my country, and it's a changing world. All are welcome, and I think it's really important. Could not be more important. Washington State's a bit split. It's very red, if you will, Republican across the other side of the mountains. And then on the west side where we sail, it's very liberal. And so traditionally, the urban areas. And so we want people from the other side of Washington to experience their waterways in Puget Sound as well. And you cannot isolate people, and we make sure of that. So, operational sustainability. Here's where we've been in terms of our value. It's a snapshot, a growth in our financial position. And for a nonprofit world, I'm not entirely sure about what you call it in your countries. I have no idea actually, but it's a nonprofit assets minus liabilities equal our net assets. So whereas we've, had some issues along the way, it's been a nice steady growth. And I think that's ideally, and this is only one ship, right? It's not like we have other ships. We do all our work on this ship. And then as financial snapshot, I want to really illustrate with this that the diversity of income. So we talk about, this is only our operating budget, doesn't include any of that capital stuff I told you about. And this is stuff I have to report to foundations on. This is what we talk about at our board meetings every other month. And this is what our finance committee focuses on. And I'm lucky to have an incredible group of volunteer board leadership, finance committee leadership. And what this illustrates under the income side, obviously the size of our operating budget, but that really every program is subsidized. Every single program is subsidized. And you can see it, because if we don't fundraise, we can't do this work. So we do give scholarships on top of subsidized programs, but you can see that, really our earned income only covers, half of what we do. And this is, 1 year, but our years look pretty similar to this. I want to just remind you again, this is our space. This is where we work. And I also, by way of reminder, is that we do only program. And we don't even talk about, if people talk about charters, we actually don't charter Adventurous. So we talk about that. We've taken the word charter out of our lexicon. And part of this happened when I first started. We were doing things like weddings, but we were doing them badly. I don't think you should do weddings unless you do them well. And if you can do them well, that's great. But it is unearned or unrelated business income, taxed differently in the United States. I also felt like the more we can build our brand, this is what we do, the more seriously we'll be taken. Because if we started to water it down with other income, I was feeling that was going to be problematic. And of course, it took some time to really make sure that brand was solid. But so I wanted to switch to the meat of this, really, and for that it's really about it's about being able to diversify our programs, being able to look at the opportunities in the region, and being able to respond. And I'll just start with one program opportunity that we're really starting. We've got our foot in the door. If you can imagine going in our inland waterways, we have to pay high moorage. They're either at a private facility or at a port facility, either in Seattle or Tacoma or Olympia or some of our, I should have had a little map of our inland waterways, but no one gives us a break on moorage. We have to pay moorage everywhere. And our boat's the largest boat out there, so except for a few mega yachts that come through. So how do you actually give away program and have to pay high rates of moorage, have to pay what everybody else pays, have to pay wages? I do have a crew of 12 to 15 people at any time, 2/3 of which are salaried, that have a salary. So we do pay our educators because of how serious we are as an education vessel. So we started to work this year, our last couple, this has taken multi-years to put in place, but there's one, Port of Seattle has a facility where they're interested in adventurers being there. They have rooms called Shilshal Bay Marina. And we, in exchange for some moorage, which is the first time they've been able to argue that at a port facility, we've done some training for their staff at the facility. We have traded so that we can take their public out. It is a public facility, so we take the public out on festivals. They have some festivals each year. And we've been able to create a shared goal situation that actually has to run by the port's legal department. And it has been taken multiple years to put into place, but it saves us about $5,000. And for us in moorage, that's a lot of cash to come up with. I otherwise would have to come up with cash. What's really neat about the Port of Seattle is they're now starting to work on the issue. It's in their charter to work on workforce development. And this year was the second year that we've been able to actually, we've gotten funded by the port at the rate that we charge to take kids out and get them inspired about maritime. These are kids, a lot of them who can throw a stone to Puget Sound, but they've never been there. They've never been on anything. They've hardly been on ferries. And in some cases, you know, they're very low income, very diverse populations. And we've been able to offer that now to the Port of Seattle. What we're working on with, and you can't really operate in a vacuum and say, oh, hey, you know, we're the only one doing this. What we want to do is funnel them into other organizations that can then take these kids on a pathway. And some of them have ended up at maritime academies. And some of them have gone through different trainings on diesel engines and gone to work as diesel mechanics. And it really inspires them to look at maritime as a career. I personally don't believe that any kid's going to care about working in a maritime environment without having been on the water. Like, it doesn't make any sense. They're not drawn to it. They don't know anybody that works in it. And some of you have spoken to that in your presentations. So it's a niche where we can play, and I'm excited about that. Most of our work, so we do day programs and overnight programs. Like I said, if you can do it in a classroom, we're not likely to do it on Adventurous. I will say there's an assumption that there's schools have money. In the United States, they kind of don't. Canada, they still do. And anyone from Canada? So we tried to serve kids in Richmond across the border, up south, just a suburb of Vancouver, wonderful city. But we bumped up against, Canadian Coast Guard. So we couldn't really do that except for a 12-pack. But it's amazing. Canada still, believe me, compared to the United States, Canada still invests in its children. And it's sometimes very discouraging in the U.S. because there used to be, all our organizations in the U.S., a lot of them came up in the 70s and 80s when there was field trip money. There was bus money for field trips. There isn't even that. So how do you run a business model when there's no money at all, right? That's what we're facing. And I've been doing this for a while. I don't really think I'm wrong on that. So what we do is we go out in the world, in the Puget Sound region, and we say, who needs us? Why do they need us? What can we do for you? And we listen. And one of the problems that we're trying to solve is the issue that in tribal, we got a lot of wonderful tribes, and their kids are very engaged in maritime. The canoe journeys are powerful transformational experiences for the kids. What they don't have is tribal people working in their fisheries and in their maritime industries. And their maritime industries are robust and growing. and they don't have, anyway, so they don't have any pathway for these kids. And so what we've done is we've been able to connect, and I know Les Bolton's worked with tribes quite a bit, and it's amazing when you can. It also takes culturally takes a tremendous amount of work, but it's worth it. So what we've been doing is every year or two we have programs, overnight programs on Adventurous. We have their tribal staff come and talk to our crew, because that's what a partnership is, right? So they give us some training. We come back with inspiring about science and careers in maritime and marine science, and then the kids get sort of a more well-rounded experience, and it's an amazing cultural exchange. So we've also identified a pretty amazing market, a couple programs a year. These are some of our highlights of what I think are maybe more innovative things that we do. One of them is Girls at the Helm. Nancy Richardson, raise your hand, Nancy, is one of our mentors that has come back for a number of years for our Girls at the Helm program, and I believe is replicating the program at LAMI this year in Los Angeles. The Exie Johnson, which makes the female ship appropriately so. So what we have is a program where girls come. They're often, one of the things I've been able to do is by talking about this program, I go to yacht clubs and other groups where they're interested in boating or sailing, and often they'll come up with a scholarship for a girl to come aboard. And then also they'll come on, we have a certain set of spaces for women mentors, women who are experienced and have careers in maritime and marine science industries, and really inspiring girls to care about the marine environment. We even have a diesel mechanic, a woman who is a diesel mechanic that works for one of the companies and comes aboard and teaches the girls about diesel mechanics. It's pretty powerful when you can have a woman role model, as I think most of us know, who are women. So I learned something exciting from you, Sarah, about your program. I think your program that takes refugee kids out with kids from Tasmania, and I believe that Adventurous in all of our ships could possibly play a role in a world that's desperately needing us to see the other as human, and to bring the humanity out. And I think that the one thing I hear from so many kids that come off is, I would never have been friends with that kid otherwise. How many times have you heard that on your boat? I think I certainly have. This is another program we run. It's grandparents and grandkids. It's an open enrollment, meaning people sign up from all over the place. I'm very excited about the new website for Tall Ships International, hoping that maybe we don't have to run half full for some of these. And we go to festivals, and there's a reason we do go to some festivals. And this is our Canada Festival. We go to Canada Day. We actually have chosen Canada Day now, I know it seems a little un-American, over the Lake Union 4th of July Festival. And one is that I love the Ships to Shore Festival. They're really committed. That's a town with a vision, a city with a vision, City of Richmond. And whenever I find a community with a maritime vision, I get on board with it. And I'm like, great, how can we help you? We are moored up in Anacortes, which is north of Seattle, so it jumps into the San Juan Islands in the summer. And the reason is they have a maritime vision it's a historic preservation maritime vision, which is very exciting. I also, I would love to be able to do the Seattle Wooden Boats Festival in July 4th and the Canada Day Festival, but it's really hard to get from Canada to Seattle in reasonable time and be able to make some resources to do that. They also pay us, although they pay us in Canadian funds, and that's starting to be a little bit of an issue. So anyway, this is this beautiful, people get very excited. They love the helm, right? So I am very excited too, though, about next year, because we have an agreement in the works with Tacoma to do the festivals that are going to happen in 2017, and some of you might be there. So I wanted to ask you if there's and I do believe in the collective wisdom, and again, I really believe any one of you could do this presentation probably with greater wisdom at this point. But I do want to see if there's anything that that you think you'd like to share with the group by way of highlighting your program as an innovative earned income strategy related to your mission. I'm curious about your mission, and I'm curious if you have a strategy related to that that you'd want to share that earns you some income, answers your mission.
Just
Please.
one small one. Do you get an appearance fee when you go to a festival?
Sometimes, yes. So in the case of, there's a Marina Day in Port of Seattle, and we now exchange, instead of having to pay $120 a foot or more, we get to deliver program and save money. In Canada, we get paid for that festival, and in Tacoma, we're being paid for that festival. I am trying to be more strategic because I have payroll to make. And because of that, I actually am well, we're not going to Seattle anymore.
The reason I ask is because we made that mistake way back in the very beginning with the ship. We got so excited about being asked to festivals, we didn't have the backers to get there.
Yeah.
And then one of our board members, who's a business analyst, said, "Why are you doing this? It cost you that to give them a free ship."
That's right.
And it's kind of hard-nosed, but it's a reality.
Well, it's a good thing for people in the room who run festivals to know, is that if you're a serious operation, and I know it's hard on both sides, right? It's hard to raise the corporate resources and have the sponsorship to get us all there. It's hard to run your ship without making payroll. If you want a safe ship, you've got to staff it. And in our case, not only safe, but, serious education, experiential education, serious experiential education. And that is, I do think, my board has asked me too, why haven't you insisted on more? Or why haven't you, I'm charging Tacoma what our daily rate is with a group of students, which means that I'm subsidizing my time in Tacoma, aren't I? So I'm raising some resources to be able to do that. I'm not gouging Tacoma. I'm asking for a fair price.
I mean, you can make a fair balance. So you can make a trade by offering them, as you said before, and we do it a lot.
Yep.
Take corporates out for, say, a function or something like that in return for printing all our brochures, various other things. It's a trade. You can do that with a festival too.
Mm-hmm.
They can be seen to be the sponsors of half a day on the ship or a day on the ship or whatever.
That's right.
In return for giving you cash for being there. Because they're getting an asset, and they get it by your own standards, they're millions of dollars worth of asset. And so you don't kind of give your asset away.
Do you know, you're right. And you know what I'm smiling about is how entrepreneurial you are and how critical it is to be. If you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to care about ships and you want your life to have meaning, Tall Ships is a great place to spend time. You can't take it with you. So earn as much as you want. I don't care what you do. You're not going to be happier. At least that's my story in my head about my life, right? And I just think it's really, I studied when I did get a master's in business, but what I did is spend a lot of time practicing developing nonprofit social enterprises and going to business plan competitions with them. Like and we won, best retail idea. It was like a camp situation where you could kind of send your kid a camp package online and, just different things. I mean, if you like entrepreneurial efforts, I mean, Tall Ships are for you. Go figure out how to, make it work. And it's never boring, right? I mean, I don't think it is. Okay, so.
Lots of ways to make it financial in small things like with festivals. Just one quick example. We did a festival in New South Wales many years ago now. They wanted us up there, and we said, look, we can't come for nothing. This is what we'd like you to do. So they promoted us. They filled the ship with passengers to get there. They filled the ship with passengers to get back. They filled 3-day sails while we were there, and we took gold coin donations to have a look at the ship. And I think we banked about $20,000 in a weekend.
That's amazing.
And there was another ship of a similar size to us that went and didn't do that. They went there empty. They came back empty. They let people on for free. and they actually got nothing for their asset. And I thought that was sad in a way, because it is an asset. It's worth a lot of money. We had no complaints from anybody on paying a few bucks for this and a few bucks for that. And people love to do it, and they feel they're getting something back for it as well, I think.
And you're getting extraordinary amount of marketing. And, people are signing up. If you have open enrollment programs, it's a great way to do that. And then, of course, you do advanced work. Let's look at Les Bolton again. He is the best media advanced person I know out there. Every time his ships came to a port, they do significant advanced work. So you do have to trade. You're like, what am I going to get out of this experience? And you're looking at it holistically. And that's the mark of an entrepreneur. That's what you do. What am I getting? What am I trading? I feel really fortunate that I have a wonderful, incredible 16-member board of directors from all kinds of sectors, all kinds of backgrounds. But operationally, they let me play with the model. And, as long as it's mission related, it's a broad mission, right? So I can think about, well, what's the value to, I want to do refugee programs and exchange and teach kids from other countries about the environment and why they should care. I want to create stewards in those kids who, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those kids are, going to be a while before they think about the environment because they can't eat, Where's their family going to get their money from?
You've got that all important word in your mission statement too, inclusion.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about.
I just think we have a role to play in this industry, and it's an industry, right? I just really do. More than ever, I feel super passionate about that right now. Les, thank you so much.
What I was going to say was, the Adventurous has such a strong mission. It is really ingrained. So if you talk to someone who has been on the Adventurous, they can't tell you the mission statement word for word, but they completely understand that mission. And with our vessels, we operate basically year-round. We visit 40 ports a year, and one of the things that we talk about, and we make sure that every time people come out sailing with us, we do public sailing programs and we do school programs Monday through Friday. And every sailing program, we thank people so much for helping us be able to bring education programs to the local community. And we do an online ticketing program. And just for, I wonder if anybody would donate. And so we put a little tag when you're buying your ticket. And would you like to donate funds to support shipboard education programs for kids in your community?
Mm-hmm.
You can send one child sailing for $35. And it's interesting, we've had a number of people who actually bought a $70 ticket and then donated $210 so that they could send a group of kids out sailing. And again, it links back to that. Do they understand what the real mission is? Yeah, I'm taking you out sailing. We're going to have a fun time, all you adults. We're going to teach you a little bit, but more than that, this is an opportunity for you to support the education programs in your community. And that was one of the best things we ever did.
Very smart. Well, Billy, thank you, Les. And his ships are pretty legendary in the Pacific Northwest and up and down the coast. And you built that program to what it is. And Billy, did you have an example of a mission-related earned income strategy that you wanted to talk about? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
what's actually kind of interesting for me. So Billy Sabatini and the Captain of Niagara.
You can stand if you want.
So I don't know what our mission is. We're owned by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which is a state in the United States. We have an agency that is then underneath the governor that has a mission statement. Then we have a different department that has another mission statement. Then we have the Erie Maritime Museum, which has another mission statement. And we have the Flagship Niagara League, which is the nonprofit that has another mission statement. And they all also have vision statements as well. So we have vision statements and mission statements. So I actually don't know what our mission statement is on the ship. And the other thing is that if you were talking to me about this, I am very much into sail training. But that's kind of where I draw the line. We're not trying to save the world. We're not trying to save the environment. And I don't believe that I can do that off of Niagara. But what we're trying to do is save an individual. If we can do that, we've done something good. And we've completely reworked our entire sail training program the past roughly 3 years. We had a complete open enrollment program. Anybody can go sailing on Niagara at any time. And we realized you can't market to everybody all the time. So we decided to use, we were trying to branch off and do all kinds of different interesting things, doing science program, doing 8th grade sales, and we had all these different things we were trying to pull off. And we decided to go very focused and really highlight the sail training program on Niagara. Niagara is a square rigger, and as a lot of you here at Sail Square Riggers, the sail training component is real. You need the trainees to go off to do the work and make everything happen. So by being on a square rigger, the work is the program. And when we changed our design a little bit, we went to distinct, unique programs that we were looking just for 14 to 18-year-olds for these 2 weeks in July. In August, I want only 14, 18-year-olds that are going to a maritime-based high school program. In May, I only want college students that are focused on history. Because they're a historic ship, seems like a good fit. And what we've done is in the course of 3 years, we've doubled enrollment 2 years in a row. So from 14 to 15 and 15 to 16. And in 2016, we were sold out. And that really, so we're talking about, earned income. Like I said, we don't have, like I said, I don't know the mission statement, but what we have done is created sort of an ideology and a philosophy on board that sail training can be enough to save an individual. And by focusing on that and really focusing on the individual, we've had lots of success in making money. And the one other program that we do, if you don't mind, is on the day sail side of things. So most of what we do is our long format programming, but on the shoulder seasons, we do day sails as well. And we've been working hard to start doing corporate sales, which most people think of corporate sales as being, the wine and cheese sale, sunset sale. Well, what we've decided to do is do corporate team building. And we've gone to companies in our community and saying, all right, we want to take you out sailing. And well, that's great. Well, we'll have everyone, bring their husbands and wives and kids. I said, no, we want to take you sailing. And it's only going to be your employees. And really saying that we're going to take you sailing is not that accurate. You're going to sail the ship. And some of you have probably done this in the past, but what we do is we take their engineers, their welders, their IT people, and we mix them all up into their own watch. So all these people that they know that the other people exist but never actually worked with them before, now they're forced to work together on something that none of them know anything about. So the engineer that's always telling the welder, you're doing this wrong, make sure your people are doing this correctly, now has that welder looking at like, oh wait, I just learned how to do this, let me show you how to do this. And we've had huge success on doing day sails with these these companies in Erie, Pennsylvania and outside of Erie that has really had a huge impact on those companies and how they work together. And I feel if sail training is our mission, which, like I said, it's sort of more of our philosophy of how we do things, it's completely on mission to get, and we get $5,000 every time we take a company out sailing for 4 hours. But they feel it's a drop in the bucket compared to what they get back from it. So those are really the two things that we do on Niagara as a highlight of things that we're making a lot of money on, but they're completely in step with how we want to operate the ship.
I have one question. You get time in 4 hours to do team building with those companies?
We do. Just because of the way Niagara is set up, it takes so many people to do everything. I do something in advance too. I go out and meet with all the employees that are going to be sailing with us, and I do a full introduction for a couple hours of the names of the sails, the parts of the ship. So when they get there, they know a little bit of the vocabulary. And in that 4-hour sail, I mean, we're tacking a square rigger back and forth. So we're tacking, we're wearing, and we're actually maneuvering the ship all over the bay. And in doing so, they pretty quickly figure out what's going on. We can't teach them the entire ship in 4 hours, but we're not trying to. What we're trying to do is get them to work together with people they don't know. And it's like I said, it's been pretty successful. And yeah, the 4 hours is enough.
Well, thank you, Billy. I can see it's fantastic. And I feel like there could be a lot of discussion about this too. I think that all of you probably have examples of stuff you've done, and I'd love to hear them. Come talk to me after, or grab me in the hall and say, hey, I've done this. And I would love to. There can't be enough discussion about business models and tall ships in my estimation. I can also see your circles and where they interact, in my head about what you've just said and why it's mission related. But I'm going to move on to the other side of funding and looking at your diversity of fundraise income and strategies that reflect your mission and organizational culture. I've been hearing a bunch of these over the last day. And so this is very intentional in our organization, and I do bring that experience, and I am always learning. So I say that very humbly because, there's just always something new in the world of fundraising that we can borrow from another industry or another nonprofit and apply to tall ships. But for us, it's very intentional. It's inclusive as much as fundraising can be, and looking at all the different people that want to give in different ways to your organization. I've heard that from you as well with your work in Tasmania. And it's a plan. It's a system. It happens all year long. And I wanted to start with Membership March briefly, because we have people don't believe the membership we have. It is more of a fundraising strategy than it is a program. I think in most organizations, a membership would fall under the fundraising side of things, and really, people don't believe our membership opportunity. It's $120 for a household to sail on over 20 public sails a year in the Puget Sound region. $120. If you have 5 people in your household, you can bring them all on board 20 times a year. But does that happen? No. They bring them on once. Then they might bring them on twice. So it doesn't tax your system, but there's a psychology. We were talking psychology. There's a psychology, Raul, about this, where people are, it gets them into your community. They're bought in. They belong to you in your community. I even had people sit across from me in a desk when I was doing some fundraising, and they said, why did you not let me buy a ticket and why did you talk me into a membership? And I said, because I don't just want your money, I want your heart. And in fact, that's what we get. It's amazing. They come back, and this ship makes them come back. Adventurous does that. So how many of you have a day of giving in your countries or in your region? I know the US we do. It's a pretty powerful thing that we've jumped on, where you basically get funding because you market a day of giving, and Give Big in the Seattle area is this day of giving where millions of dollars are given to nonprofits, and we simply take advantage of that, market it, send it out to our constituents and say, please give this time. And it's in the spring. So that I'm doing actually a little bit of a clock thing here. We have a major, what you saw was the movie that we showed at our gala before we did the paddle raise. Are you familiar with the paddle raise? It's the thing and a major event where you just ask for money. And they say, yes, I'll give you 10,000. Yes, I'll give you 5,000. And you really tell your stories in a way that allows people to give. And if you have a gala, for us, if we need one, it's part of our fundraising strategy. We raised 40,000 the first year. 5-6 years ago, we raised 140,000 this year in September, and we needed it. So it's also an opportunity for us to engage our business partners where they want top billing. And then down the road there, we get fundraising from in-kind on some of these. Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Some of you might have heard of that. And that's a great cultural fit for us. So we also use this event to really recognize and do this. So right now we are in the middle of $29 for 29 days. Get kids on the boat. It's a campaign we started a few years ago. We started it because we were very lucky to be in 2010 one of the first online voting campaigns. I know it's old hat now. There's other things going on instead, but we were voted the #1 historic site in Puget Sound region against some other land-based things, and people kind of scratched their head and went, "What? An old boat?" So we were called an old boat publicly, but then we were able to sort of leverage that to a grassroots campaign. What I love about this campaign, right now we've raised about $6,000, and it's not a ton of money, but I have a theory about giving, and I think I was talking about this, Raul, last night, is that we have cultivated some major donors. The band Yes, do you know the band Yes? Okay, well we have, oh no, this is being recorded. So the band Yes is a wonderful band. There's the drummer, lives in Seattle. Really generous people, really wonderful people. And they've given, some things down the road, but like they're an example of sort of people we've cultivated where we just haven't really been successful in getting a financial gift, right? And that's our fault. So yes, people, that's our fault. It's totally our fault. We should have asked. But my point here is that if somebody doesn't give you a little bit, they're not going to give you a lot. And so you have to open the flood door, and somebody gets used to giving you some funding, and then maybe something you share with them, a story you share with them, is more compelling than what you shared before, and so they give again at a larger amount. And all of you who fundraise for a living know this. But this is the campaign that allows everyone to contribute, even if you only have $29, and we promote it all over the place. We branded it. It's a sweet little campaign. It might cost $30 now to get a kid on the boat, but we're not going to change that. So there's a little inflation going on, but I think it's a really fun, engaging grassroots campaign. I'm wearing a pin, and this is actually not one of the ones that are given out. But we have some of them, and they look like this. We have a level of giving that started, and I credit my board members for coming up with this brilliant campaign. We have a national public radio that was really pushing, and it was pushing the $1,000 level of giving. And there's some evidence in fundraising world that says if you can get people to give at $1,000, then for operations, then that's a sustainable level if you can grow their giving at that level. So we have a centennial circle that started in 2013 when Adventures turned 100. And it was an opportunity for us to say, you can be a part of this, help sustain our operating programs. As you know, we've got all that subsidized, half of the circle we need to raise. And so we've started this. So every year we get to hold a few special events a year. We're about to have one on this very special historic motor vessel in Lake Washington in Seattle, where it's a Christmas holiday theme. And people who've been in the Centennial Circle before, we're going to ask them back to come. Once you've given to the Centennial Circle, you don't ever have to give again. But we're going to keep inviting you to those few events a year because you gave $1,000. You might have the capacity to give again. We don't know. But to stop asking you would be foolish. So our idea is that you would come back and you would have them give again, and you grow this. And that is a sustainable practice in terms of fundraising the pin. Only people get to wear them have given $1,000 to Sound Experience. You do not get one if you have not given $1,000 to Sound Experience in cash financial resources. So if you ever see one, thank them for supporting us, because that's what they did. This actually isn't, this is not a real one. This is one that they used as a prototype. I actually haven't given $1,000 yet to Sound Experience, but I hope to. I've given blood and sweat and tears every payroll period. I do that, but I definitely will give $1,000 at one point and get a proper pin. So I wanted to ask if there are any of you who, like Les, you just gave us a wonderful example. Are there any of you that have a culture? So those things, can you see, by the way, how those strategies reflect sound experiences culture of inclusion. Do you see that? You can give it any level. It's not meant to. In fact, we really struggled with the $1,000 level because we're like, wow, well, is that us? You know, are we leaving people out? And then we're like, you know what? That's ridiculous, because we're not. We're just giving other people the opportunity to give. People want to have a special connection to you as an organization. Does anybody have any other great ideas that they do? I bet all of you do. Yeah. What's your name?
David.
Hi, David. Would you mind standing up? Sorry. What have you got?
We have a crazy one. We do it annually. Probably one of our biggest fundraising. Because we're in the Caribbean, we have a Pirates Day event. And we cause people in the community, probably favorite as politicians or headmasters or teachers or even employers, and we cause the public to seize them, and then they have to pay money to either force them to walk the plank or to be saved. So it's a competition. Family,
that's fun.
The employer says, all my employees will pay to save me, and then all the other cultural people will pay to walk the plank, and we have this competition going on. So it takes about 2 months to build it up.
Wow.
And then we have the town crier on a Sunday go to the church and grab hold of the archbishop and march him down and put him out on the ship, and then the public vote to walk the plank or to be saved.
Wow.
And it raises easily $150,000.
Holy smokes. And would you say that's culturally reflective of your work? It might be. If fun is one of your goals, that's really fun.
We have to get inventive each year.
Mm-hmm.
So last year, we thought we've got to get more excitement going on. So there is this vessel, this sort of floating tub.
Yeah.
And it's built like a pirate ship. So we have it come alongside.
Wow.
And then we fire cannons at each other to cause it to be a pirates event. And everybody wants to get on the bar ship and have a drink and watch the event occur. So we do have an innovative.
That is really creative. It makes me laugh and smile just thinking about it. So I believe fun is probably an organizational value that you have.
Well, the town crier is a personality in himself with his loud voice and his bell. And while the person is standing, we're waiting for the victim to either walk the plank or be saved. He's shouting to the crowd, walk the plank, walk the plank. And then everybody has to have the credit card out and put another $10 or another $100 to make him walk the plank.
Wow.
It's to be quite interesting because they have a bar of what his income is to be saved or his income is to be walking the plank.
Wow.
What
Okay.
organization and where is this?
Yeah.
This is
And can we come?
The vessel's the Spirit of Bermuda, and it's the Swoop Foundation.
That's excellent. That is excellent. Thank you so much. And I think we spoke on the phone one time. I wish we had more time because we're a couple minutes from time, because I want to hear all of these stories. And I think, we're all in different markets, right? And especially globally in different markets. And so when I think about the ideas that we could all share, I have a feeling that we could probably really lean on each other and get really creative. So that's really fun to hear. What I finally wanted to just leave you with is a couple things. I want to give super credit to Peter Drury, who's a brilliant Seattle nonprofit leader. And you can find this at seattledrury.com down here. And give him credit on this, because this is a dashboard that I really love. I want to especially point out this gives you a little sense of, if you want to measure if you're getting any better on the fundraising side, the retention rate is, as long as you're keeping that and growing it, you're going to do fine. The other thing is the new donor rate is that should go up as well. And there's these are really great thoughts and ideas, and you can find that and some more information on that as well. And then I have two other, I can leave that up if anyone's still using it. PeterDrury.com. He's also working globally, interestingly. I love this shot. Isn't that beautiful? What an impressive bow she's got. And then finally, if you want to take a look at our strategic plan that will now be retired at the end of 2016. Here's where it was. I did want to read you the vision, because vision is different. And it's different than the mission because it's what you envision the future to look like. You're starting from the future and working back, and you can go look at it like, what's the difference between vision and mission? I think you can debate that for days. But our vision, and it's similar to our new one, is we envision a future where everyone values Puget Sound and chooses to act as stewards of its treasured waters. And what that is that is the vision of what is, and that you're working to it, right? So that's how we look at that. And then the last thing I have, if you want to come take a look at it, have anyone heard of a book called Good to Great? It's used in the corporate world a lot, and it's about how do you make great companies. Well, it has a nice compendium called Good to Great for the social sector. So if you want to see if you're on track or look at how you take use some concepts, business principles, but add the complexity of social of the delivery of social value to the world. This is a really great book to take a look at. So I'll have this up here too if you want to see that. And is there? We're done. We're so done. I'm so sorry, but yes, Nancy Richardson. Yes, you had something.
One of the benefits of sailing with Adventurous is to be part of the mission and being an ambassador for the mission of Adventurous. One of the things they did in 1972, this is what the ship looked like, and I brought a group of Girl Scouts on board, and I got this card, which I have since worn out, so I made a copy. Know ye that Nancy Richardson has sailed as a trusted crew member of the schooner Adventurous in the waters of Puget Sound, blah, 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 and is well qualified in the mysteries of the deep. Every girl got one, and I know that some of them are still carrying their card and carrying the mission. In 2012, I was part of the Girls at the Helm, and all of a sudden they started to hand out cards again with the different ship on the picture, and it says, I'm well qualified in the mysteries of the deep, even at my age, and will educate, inspire, and empower others to care for a marine environment. So it carries on, and kids don't usually get business cards. Maybe we need to do an app of carrying on the mission of our organizations, but I'll tell you, we made one for our Irving and Exley, and the Girl Scouts who sail with us all get this something about the mysteries of the deep.
Well, I can't thank you all enough, Nancy. Thank you. And all of you. And I hope to hear all your presentations on earned and fundraised income next year, because I have a lot more to learn, and I'd love to keep learning from all of you. If you have anything you want to share with me afterwards, anytime for the rest of the conference, I'd be thrilled to know you and hear about your stories. So thank you so much. And thank you so much.